Well, good evening, listeners. You're welcome to Family Connect. We're excited to have you on this particular edition. So many of us have been looking forward to this broadcast. It has gathered a lot of interest, and rightly so. So I trust that we are going to have a wonderful time. We're still expecting two of our guests to join in. They're having a little bit of challenge. They're having a little bit of challenge with joining in. I think it's just an internet issue because they both are in Abuja. But I hope in the next couple of minutes they'll be able to join us. And whenever they join us, we will just continue and I'll introduce them by that time. Oh, great. So Professor Abimiku is able to join us. That's
Hi, everyone.
wonderful. Prof, you're welcome.
Thank you. Hey,
We have
good
just
morning.
How
one
you doing,
more
man?
lap to go. Pastor Sam is able to join us. He's the last person we're expecting now, and I think he's in the process. Okay. A couple of weeks ago, we started Family Connect, and basically we started it by having a discussion with the youths. We had a session with fathers, mothers, and then the youths. And during our time of discussion with the young people, we discovered there was an issue of a generational gap. And we were sort of wondering the cause for that generational gap. Oh, Pastor Sam is here. This is wonderful. You're welcome, sir. I was just trying to introduce us.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So during our discussion with the youths, we discovered there were issues of generational gap, and we wanted to find out the cause. And the youth said they wanted freedom from us. And we thought also that typically African parents tend to be a little bit controlling. So, and they said something that if we trusted the way we brought them up, then we should trust them enough to know how to navigate life now. So that brought up the issue of the difference in culture between the West and Africa, and in particular Nigeria. And we thought it's something, they gave us a thread that we thought we could follow in terms of globalization. And some of the parents complained about their children going to the West, adopting the culture of the West, not knowing how to speak their language anymore or eat their food anymore. And so that is the disadvantage. And one of them clearly said there's a difference between globalization and modernization. It's not everything about the West that is bad. We have a lot to gain from our experience with the West. However, how do we bring a balance in such a way that we do not lose our culture totally and completely? So, to start this discussion, I'm going to start by introducing our speakers. The first person on my list is Pastor Sam Otenaike. He is an engineer by occupation and a kingdom businessman, a life coach, and a nation builder. Um, he has an apostolic calling to raise spirit filled, highly skilled, world class service providers being prepared to establish the kingdom of God in their marketplaces. Sam is married to his quiet, darling wife, Esther, who is my namesake, and they are blessed with three children. They live in Abuja, and together they pastor the Precious People's Assembly for All Nations. Pastor Sam, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you so very much, Pastor Esther. And fellow panelists, thank you very much.
All right. I was just going to introduce Manny and he disappeared. I hope he comes back on very soon. Nkechi Abok is a broadcaster and a community engagement practitioner. As an advocate for the girls' child's rights, she has mentored over 300 girls in Plateau State, Nigeria, on growing up and sexuality and health education. Mrs. Abok holds a bachelor's degree in mass communication and an array of other professional certificates on communication. She volunteers a lot, and she's a pioneer of Growing Up Affairs initiative. Nkechi, it's good to have you on this broadcast.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much. Next is my dear Sylvia Williams, who, who is the founder of Network of Love International, a non-for-profit organization that aims to help local people in rural villages to improve the quality of their lives. Sylvia is passionate about youths and holds a special connection with them. She spent years volunteering as a missionary around the world, and she also sings professionally. Wow, that's really great. We're going to have you sing a song for us today before you leave.
It's my honor.
She currently works as an internally flight attendant and personal chef in Los Angeles, California. And in her spare time, she enjoys studying African culture anthropology. She's also an immigration consultant. Sylvia, it's wonderful to have you on this broadcast.
Thank you, Pastor Esther. It's my honor.
All right. We lost Professor Alashle, and okay, let me see if she's coming back again. I think she's having problems with her internet. I hope it pulls up. Oh, there you are. Welcome back, ma'am. Professor Alashle is the Executive Director of International Research of Excellence at the Institute of Human Virology here in Abuja, Nigeria, and also in Baltimore, the University of Maryland. We have an advantage of having Professor Alashle, who has lived on both sides of the continent. She's lived in America and she's now back in Nigeria, and she will be in a very good position to give us a balanced opinion. Prof, you're welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you for having me. I hope I can get a better connection. I don't know why it's a little cloudy here.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why. Well, we'll just trust that it will hold out. So I'm going to set the ball rolling. And Sylvia, I would like to start with you. The conversation is that Africa is losing its children to the West. Is that something you agree with, or there's a perspective to it you would like to share with us?
Yes. The question is Africa losing its children to the West? I think a lot of Africans have lost their kids to the West already. And it's such a broad topic, and I'm looking forward to going to a lot of details. But there's a lot of positive and negative influences from the West to the African culture. And the African culture has a lot of richness. And I think that the children are not exposed to that or respected. It's respected here in the U.S. or in the West. So that's just a basic introduction.
Okay, we'll come back and expand on that a little bit later. But I'd like to ask Pastor Sam Otenaike to come in at this time. And what are the ways that you think Africa may be losing its children to the West?
Thank you very much. I think if I may start, it starts from our parents, we the parents, we have a desire to have our children have the best. We don't want them to go through the pains we have gone through.
Yeah.
We want them to enjoy a better life. So as a result, we are packaging these children right from youth with a view to shipping them to having a better life. This is not unconnected with the fact that many of us have lost faith in our nation. We can't see a better horizon. We can't see anything that our country has to offer. So right from birth, some of us attempt to go abroad to have these children born abroad so that they can become citizens. And the moment they are finishing primary school or secondary school or university, we begin to make a way for them to go. So I will say that we, the parents, of the encouragement of these losses we're experiencing, either by, well, maybe not intentional, but by default. And like I said, because we want them to have a better life. So we have lost faith in our country, and we just think, you know what, there is no hope here, and any opportunity they have to go abroad. However, I believe we have not done enough, because there is nothing bad in having a dream of a better life for our children. It's the desire of every parent to ensure that their children are bigger, greater than them. But I think where we have failed is during the initial years, those growing up years of between 4 and 14, we have failed to imbibe the right culture and the right Christian biblical worldview into these children. We have not acculturated them with our own culture. Again, many of us are not even aware of it. So as a result, those children have nothing in terms of culture to tie them down. They have, as a matter of fact, as they are growing up, we don't even encourage them to speak our language because we feel, look, they shouldn't be local people. So, I mean, right from home, we've already lost them. And language and culture are the two major things that we can give these children. But if we don't encourage them to learn our language, then what are they going to go with? So I think we, the parents, primarily, whichever way we look at it, are the ones who have built the mechanism for these losses into our children. I think I will stop for now.
Thank you so much. I'll go to you, Professor Olashle, if you would come in at this time. You've lived on both sides of the world. You've lived in the West and you've also lived in Africa. In fact, your work has really been spectacular, and you're an example of how an African can go to the West and, you know, build capacity, get very educated, and then return home and rebuild, you know, our own country and rebuild Africa. And you have done spectacularly in the area of science. And we are so honored to have you on this program with the work you're doing in virology and so on and so forth. So please come in here, Professor Olashle. What exactly is your opinion about Africans in the West and, you know, whether or not they come back home? What have you found in your experience?
Thank you, Pastor Esther, and thank you for having me on the program. I think this is a very critical topic to discuss and begin to have the dialogue between parents and their kids. I think in your introductory comment, you actually hit the nail on the head in the sense that not everything in the West is bad, but have we learned to take the good and apply that while we keep what of ours is good that other people can use. And I think that I will have to go back to parents and the way we're brought up, and even parents, it really depends on the kind of foundation they've gotten. Because if I love my culture and I understand my culture, I also know that there is nothing wrong in adapting something that improves me. But let us not confuse education and getting a best job and getting a better way of life to culture. Culture is something very precious, and it's not one or the other. And I think that that's where we've goofed, in the sense that as we continue, as we try to give ourselves a better chance in life and give our kids a better chance in life, we've mixed the cultural background we're coming from. It is very possible to have the best of the West, to go in there, to have a great education, to get a fantastic house, to get everything that you've dreamt about, but have your identity. And your identity is your culture. So it really goes back to us re-educating ourselves and saying to ourselves, let me first and foremost understand my culture. Let me be in a position to tell my kids about their grandparents, about where they come from, about this nation they were born into. Let me give them that kind of background. Let me take them out and show them things that I'm very passionate and I'm very proud of. Not a lot. There are a number of things that is happening that I'm not terribly proud of. And it's okay to share that with the child, because the idea and the prayers for all of us parents is that our children even achieve a lot more than us, right? So let's not confuse the two. And I think that's what we've done, in the sense that in aspiring for something better, we've totally lost out on something that is very precious to us, or that should be precious to us. And I think with programs like yours and this kind of awareness, then we come to recognize things that belong to us that is really precious and we have to hold on to, and things that we want our kids to achieve that helps them to do well in life. And it must start with us, that we understand our culture, we take the part of our culture that we're very proud of and that we love, and we nurture it. It's not going to come naturally. That every person, every nation has put in a significant amount of effort in protecting their culture. So your kid will not just grow up loving your village, loving grandma, loving Nigeria. It all depends on what you've exposed them to.
Right.
So we can have the best of our culture, and we can have our kids and ourselves doing great exploits out there in the world. So I think I'll stop there. Oh.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think, Nkechi, we're coming to you now. You work with young people in Nigeria, and the ambition of every young person is to make it someday abroad, to be able to go to England, to be able to go to America. I mean, it's the dream of every young person, and they pray, they fast, and if they believe God for a miracle, it is to be able to leave this country and go abroad. So, what informs that mindset of our young people, and how do we bring a balance? I know we have a problem in Africa and in Nigeria particularly, but how do we bring a balance that maybe America is not the ultimate, but you can also look within our own country and see some good things. Nkechi, do you want to come in here?
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, bringing a balance. Every young people want to travel abroad. Every young people, especially students, want to school abroad. And that's been happening. But I would say it's not their fault because, yes, our government has not placed them on the right pedestrian. They've not provided the enabling environment for them to explore academically. What they see is what's being shown to them in media. Media has taken precedence over our family in our families today. You know, we watch what we watch. We watch Z World. We watch Telemundos. You know, our music, sports, everything. What the media has projected to us is what these young people have in their mind. What they see, that's what they believe. And funny enough, the West they've projected the good part of their culture, making it the best, the ultimate, making it superior. And because of this feeling or the mindset of inferiority complex, we believe everything out there is best. Everything from the West is good. So if our youth today are given, for instance, our government invest on our health system, invest in our educational system, I'm sure, and then the media projects what we believe, project our values, project our culture. Because today, what you see in international celebration, you see only our music, our arts, some cultural artifacts, some traditional fashion, but we hardly see Africans, Nigerians doing exploits. We have people, Nigerians are doctors. We have the recent one that we have with Dr. Olukoye, who did the surgery on a fetus and returned it back to the mother's womb. We don't see celebration like that. All we see is fashion, what the media have projected to us. So if in Africa we project because what you love, you value, what you value, you express. If there is more expression of our culture, more expression of our heritage, then they keep hearing it over and over again, and then there will be easy transmission from one generation to another. So Dr. Lachebe and Pastor Sam have really emphasized so much on cultural values, and so, but what exactly in our culture would help us transmit these values and help the young people to believe in themselves? If our people don't bring back the folktale era, the telling of stories. And we know every story is a way of transmitting our values, our culture, gives insights to who we are, and it gives us a sense of belonging. And that is one thing the youth don't have, a sense of belonging. They want to fit in because of the Westerners have projected their culture and their way of life to us.
Thank you so much. Manny, welcome back. We're glad to have you here. Manny, in introducing Manny, this is how I will introduce him. It's a special thing when artists are able to translate their experiences and paint stories that we can all relate to. Manny's tales of love, heartbreak, and personal discovery, paired with his soulful harmonies and African influences to create a unique gender melding sound. The Nigerian-born, Maryland-based multi-instrumentalist has his eyes set on purpose that is bigger than music, aiming to impact lives. And a culmination of his dynamic live performances, songwriting, and production, Manny Wells has positioned himself as one of the most promising rising stars. It's an honor to have you on this program, Manny.
Thank you for having me. Such an honor to be here.
Okay, great. So
Yes.
we have just started the introductory phase of our discussion, and every person has spoken. But before Manny, you come in, I'm going to go back to Sylvia. Sylvia, an incident happened some time ago. I was in the US and we went to church with my daughter. And a friend of hers, came over to say hello because she told him that, oh, her mom is around.
Right.
So when he came to me, he said, hi. I said, hi. He said, so what's your name? I said, Uyai's mom. And you could see this shocked look on his face because in Africa, we're not used to having our children call us with first names. So I was shocked that he wanted to call me with my first name. He was shocked that I addressed myself as Uyai's mom. Can you explain for me, Sylvia, can you explain to us right now what really was transpiring between these two generations in my interaction with the gentleman?
it's like a gray area. It's like he doesn't know that that's the perspective. He doesn't know that's a tradition. He's not aware. And you, on the other hand, are not aware that he does not, I mean, I'm sure you know, but I'm just saying the norm. He doesn't understand your culture as well. And a lot of times we have expectations of others that we haven't spent time in educating. So a lot of times we react to a respond, instead of responding or having that dialogue, and a lot of times I heard when you said that about the difference in the children here in Africa. And back to that question is that the children there, most of the time, the parents play a role into the child wanting or what's glittering on the news or in the media. Is because there's also sometimes a breakdown in the home. A lot of parents have left the marriage to come to America to make a better life, and it breaks the home and the foundation. So all they see is, okay, everybody wants to come to the West. Everybody wants to come to the West. And then you have the African tradition where you do as I say. There's not much level ground, and also the dialogue or communication. It's do what I say, and there's not much middle ground. So a lot of times in my approach in a situation like that, I would bring up the conversation. I wouldn't just leave it. I would make it a time of education or just dialogue. Instead of, a lot of people may have been offended or say, oh, these Americans, they don't know anything and stuff like that. And instead of taking that approach, it's really look into what's really happening in his mind. It's not a conscious decision to not knowing your accolades or your title and stuff like that. So I would definitely spend time and have a kind of conversation to educate.
Okay, Manny, you can jump right in here. What are your views on this topic? What has been your experience as a Nigerian who migrated to the United States, and you're doing very well? You're a young person. Are we just generally misunderstanding the young generation, or what's your perspective?
I think it's a little bit of everything. I think there is some sort of misunderstanding, because I feel like because like here, the American culture, for example, even when I go into a studio and I work with certain individuals that are like well over, older than me, it's hard for me to call them by their name. Somebody like Wale, for example, who's a big artist. He's a good 10 years older than me. Like I always use style and call him like uncle, or what's up, bro? How you doing, bro? Just for that respect. But I think I think that's just because I have an understanding of both cultures. But where an American is, they were raised up to just maybe call somebody who's older than them by their first name, or like they call their grandparents like Nana or something like that. Like I still can't dare. Even as I'm like looked at as the man of the house, I couldn't call my grandmother by her first name or call her Nana or something like that. So I think it's a little bit of misunderstanding between both cultures, and I think both cultures should look to educate themselves about what's really going on both ends. Because like, for example, Americans, I don't think to them respect isn't saying auntie or Uncle Wale. Respect is more like maybe honoring what they say, or like listening when somebody speaks. But for us, it's like respect starts with calling somebody that's 2-3 years older than you brother, brother, this and that. So it's a little bit of like misunderstanding. But I think if both cultures and both generations could look to educate themselves on what's going on in the landscape, I think no one would be offended when things like, oh, he didn't call me brother, so I won't talk to him. So that's my
Okay, I'm going to come back to you, Pastor Sam. A lot of opinions have been expressed about the fear that the Nigerian language is becoming extinct. Not just Nigerian language, but African language in general is becoming extinct. And so our children go abroad, and we thank God for that opportunity. Maybe if we had our act together as a nation or as a continent, if we had good governance, if we had good educational system, health system, good roads, and we take care of our citizens, maybe there wouldn't be such a massive migration of Africans to the West. Unfortunately, African governments are not yet there. So we're losing our children. But much more than just, it's not like we're losing them in terms of numbers, but definitely they go there and after a while they forget the language, and you can't blame them. There aren't people that speak their language there, and so the African language is becoming extinct. What do you think we can do to preserve that? I feel very bad that when I'm with my children, I can't speak in my dialect with them. You know, we have to speak in English, is the global acceptable language. And I feel bad about that, you know, and I take responsibility for their not being able to speak their language. I should have trained them right from when they were young. So, what do we do to preserve this African language that is at risk of going extinct?
Thank you very much, Pastor Esther. I think you've made the point and you've partially answered it. I think where to start, where to start is personal responsibility.
Yes.
I will share a story. In 2011, I was in Phoenix, Arizona, for some business, and I visited one of my sons in the faith, whose family were living in Phoenix. And on getting to his home, he has two children, a boy and a girl. One is 5, the other is 3. And when I got in, these children greeted me in Yoruba and prostrated, and the other one knelt down. These children have never been to Africa. They were born in the US. And they began to converse with me in Yoruba language. My head was swollen. I was excited. I was afraid. Emotions.
Afraid.
And
All of the emotions.
I'm like, where's this from? You know what has happened? The moment they began a family life, they invited their grandma, the mother of the father, over. And she literally trained these children. She was with them 24/7. She was teaching them the language, teaching them the culture. I mean, you can imagine in America, you know, such little children who are born there, prostrating for you, an African man, when probably you are struggling with your own children at home doing that to you.
Yeah.
And here in America, I mean, I was, like I told you, my head was swollen. I was shivering. I didn't even know what to say. So for me, this is something that is very, very crucial. And I go back to our parents. I think when we talk of these children, we must put the blame where it is. Let's look at it critically. I think the major culprit is we, the parents. And Pastor Esther, you have done well by acknowledging that you even feel bad. I think every parent, these children, we are their first contact, even before they start going to any school. If right from cradle, we begin to speak the language to them, we begin to express our culture to them, the little we know, and again, that goes back to the fact that we ourselves need to get grounded in our own culture. Because what you don't have, you cannot give. Because I think, again, that is another dimension of it. But the little we can do is language. Can we please, for God's sake, as parents, teach our children our language? If we need to get special tutors, if we need to spend. Now there are apps, just like we have apps for learning French and what have you. Google translates Yoruba, there's no word. So we should invest in that and take time to train our children the importance of language. Language is the vehicle for conveyance of culture. Language is what depicts our literature, our culture. So when we start with that, I think we are going to make some progress. We had the privilege of having our children attend the American International School here in Abuja when they were in younger classes, nursery, primary, and high school. And whenever they came back, we were having struggles with them learning and speaking our language. They could understand because my wife and I, we ensure that we speak the language to them right from birth, but they weren't going to speak it. So I tell them, hey, you have Israelis in your class, you have Chinese in your class. What is their first language? When they are speaking with their parents, what language do they speak? I say, well, they speak Chinese. I say, fine. So when you are speaking with me, what is your own language? Says Yoruba. I said, then that's what you should speak. So we began to make this dichotomy to them that all these your friends, Chinese, Japanese, Israeli, they don't joke with their language. Their language is their first language. So they maintain it, and that's the vehicle for conveyance of culture. So I think that is a good place to start for us as parents. Can we please, for God's sake, not stop feeling inferior? Let's start with language. Let our children hear our language, and let's make every effort to encourage them. I know that for majority of us, that's where the problem is. Today, I struggle with my children. I tell them you must speak it. I legislate it. If you don't speak it, I'm not going to answer you. Just using all means, blackmail inclusive, to ensure that they are fluent in this. So
thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Pastor Sam, for that contribution. I think it's better late than never. Some of us missed it with our children growing up, but it's never too late to learn to do the right thing. And I really think that we as parents should be challenged to begin to do that now, even with our children. Sylvia, I'm going to come to you again. You're an immigration consultant, and Africa, we are looking forward to. Sorry, did you hear me?
Yes, I am. I'm hearing you.
Okay, great. Oops. So, I was saying that we have a challenge with Africans coming to the West and not wanting to come back home. We don't have anything with, I think, Africans coming to the West. It works both ways. There's migration all over the world. Even in biblical times, there's always been people moving from one country to the other. Abraham moved from his original country to a place that God took him to and formed a nation there. So it is scriptural to move. But we are also looking forward to, like, Africans becoming strong, becoming talented, and coming back to rebuild the continent. In your experience, what have you found as the fundamental issue on why Africans do not want to return back home and they would rather remain in the West and continue to develop the West with their own continent being in a state of, disrepair?
Thank you. It's a big one for me. 1 second. It is, because I have to be politically correct as well.
Okay.
America has a stereotype that everything about America is better and good. Even Americans are known to go to other countries and say, well, it's not done this way, or it's supposed to be, done this way, or that way. I think that I would say, not drinking the Kool-Aid, but it's a little bit of miseducation. I feel like Africans on a whole do not know the value of Africa, are not aware of the richness of the history of its being such an important motherland And the parents have to understand that media, phone, you can't address the issue 20 years from now. It has to be addressed from, as what the professor has said, from home. I've done a lot of study on my own about the African culture, and I try to educate my younger ones about our Blackness, our culture. It's being diluted. I've seen the American culture in every country. Everybody wants to be American, but what does it really mean to be American? The rap music, the media, the pants down. A lot of negative is adopted as better, which is not. One second, let me just gather my thoughts. It's such I think not only parents, but it takes a community. I think even the older family members or people that are in that area taking responsibility and really teaching. A lot of times differences does not mean that it's wrong. It just means that it's different. And a lot of times young people are also expressing the same value system, but in a different way. So sometimes if the older person are not aware of that self-growth, they won't be able to input that valuable system or that lesson into the younger ones. It's a critical issue for me, and it's a very serious issue, because more and more that we live, more and more Africa is being looked at as a negative place. And I tell my family members that Africa is a kept secret. Most Europeans go to Africa for their vacation. There's so much beautiful things. There's so much wonderful things. And we have to let our children know that when we're leaving in that home community, what you are doing as a family, that dialogue, what they see is mom going. Everybody wants to go to America, but there's no conversation. There's no, this is what we like, this is what we expect, this is our culture. We have to expose our children to beyond media, to really the importance of Africa, not just in language. We're still losing children even when they have the language. We're still losing them even when they have the food. So what is it that really we want to input in our children, to not lose them? We're losing them more to the devil more than we are losing them to our culture. It's I don't want to take too much time, but there's a lot of loss that we're experiencing.
Okay, thank you so much, Sylvia. Well, I'm going to take a few comments right now. We're really running out of time, and people have been contributing. And it says, Leke Davis says, how do we strike a balance in this 21st century? I would like Manny to answer that one. How do we strike a balance in this 21st century?
How do we strike a balance in this 21st century? I think education and experiences, and I think they go hand in hand, because you don't. So I feel like another reason why we're also losing culture, we don't know. So let's say people migrate from Africa, for example, to the United States. For me being here made me appreciate what I have back home in Nigeria and the family that I have there. But and I think that's due to my experiences in Nigeria and me educating myself. So for like a year, I told my parents that if they keep speaking English to me, that I won't talk to them. So I intentionally spoke Yoruba to understand it. And then I educated myself. So I think education, like people being more intentional to educate themselves. And if you're able to travel, like due to my circumstances, I'm not able to travel freely to Nigeria, but I have friends that can travel. I always encourage them, go to Nigeria, go to Ghana, go to Africa, go experience these things. Don't just take it at face value what's going on in Africa. Like we can spark change. We can take the good from the States and go create something good. We don't have to adopt the good and the bad. I believe that
Right.
There's good in this land, and then we could take it. Maybe some of the way certain things runs, like businesses, the systems, certain good things that happen in the government, we can take those things and apply them in Africa. And I think the combination of both will quadruple our worth, because Africa is already great. Like,
Amen.
our blackness is already amazing. The we're rich in oil, we're rich in wisdom, we're rich in skill, we're rich in art and craft, and like I meet Africans that are doing so many different things, and I'm like, I didn't even know an African person could do this, and I think those people were exposed to different things.
Right.
So when parents expose their kids, they also shouldn't be afraid to expose their kids to different things. But before exposing, we got to make sure that the kids and the people are grounded, so that they know that they're going to this space.
Still breaking.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. You know that they're going into this space,
Yes,
knowing
yes.
knowing their self-worth. Like my parents, when I was young, I used to wonder why we had always had Bible studies, why I had to memorize Psalm 1, why I had to memorize Psalm 23. But now I'm going, and I thank my parents and my dad for that. But now I go to weird spaces where I can't carry a Bible, but I know my worth and I know the God I worship. So I'm
Amen.
able to stand strong. So, but that's because my parents, one, came here, they exposed me, but as we were being exposed, they educated me and they kept me grounded. So now those same things, I think that if people can, if other people can do that, I think Africa as a whole will be great.
Amen. Thank you so much. The next comment we have is from Anne Abiniku. She said, "It is indeed not one or the other. It is making the best of both worlds. Also, parents must begin to re educate the kids to know and love our history." Nkechi, you want to comment on that? Do you agree?
Yes, yes, I want to. I'll use this Bible reference from Deuteronomy chapter 6 from verse 5 to 7. It said, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be in your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children." So there must be a conscious teaching of our heritage, of what we love, our country, our continent, to our children. "You shall talk to them when you sit." So that means when family comes together, there must be a sitting of families. That's African culture. There must be a conscious sitting down. You in your house, when you walk, when you are lying down, and when you rise. So that is one thing our parents fail to do. We don't have that time again. We are very busy. Everybody's working. Mothers, especially mothers. Mothers are the silent, powerful influencers of our children. So we are very busy. We go to work. We are facing the home front. But let's try and create a time to sit down together. In those days when they tell stories not only teach us morals and value, it also helps parents to know the strengths and weaknesses of their children and relate better with them. You know everything that is happening about them, and then you're able to encourage or advise, give different advices to your children. So indeed, there's a conscious teaching. We should do that deliberately. Everything. I grew up not having Nigerian flag in the house. Imagine we have that. Of course, I will have that in my house, but Nigeria, we don't even value our flag, our coat of arms. A lot of children, a lot of youth don't even know that. I remember years ago, I did a survey on the streets during the Independence Day to ask of our national anthem, our Nigerian flag, when we amalgamated, when we had independence. A lot of youth failed that simple question. So we have to deliberately teach our children this. Remember Paul in Philippians chapter 4. He said these
Thank you
things.
so much.
Okay.
I have to come in here. We're running out of time. Sorry, we don't have time. Thank you for that. Flora said, "Nigerians excel everywhere. We are an amazing country. We have so much to offer the world, but yes, there is terrible brain drain because we do not have safety and stability in place for our youth to develop and thrive in our own country." Professor Alashley, I would like you to comment on that. Flora Eton feels that Nigerians excel everywhere. We're an amazing country. We have so much to offer the world, but there's brain drain right now because
Yeah.
of the situation at the. How can we turn this brain drain, like I always say, to brain gain? Because we can gain from that brain drain.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. I think we have to decide that we're going to change the narrative. We've got to, it has to be very deliberate. When I left Nigeria 25 years, 30 years ago to go to the US to do my postdoctoral, there was one singular focus I had in mind, and is if I will save any other Nigerian from leaving the country only because they are looking for infrastructure to conduct research, that's what I will do. So singularly, I was very focused on looking for opportunities that would allow me to bring the infrastructure in the country and address local issues. Now, it's a drop in the ocean, but several drops in the ocean will begin to change the narrative. And I left and I will make this very brief. When I joined the laboratory, Robert Gallo's laboratory, which is a very famous scientific laboratory, and after going around and meeting all the scientists for 2 weeks, I was asked by the boss, Robert Gallo, what would you like to focus your research on? And I said, I'd like to focus my research on HIV, but I'd like to work on HIV that is impacting my country, Nigeria. I think there are lots of people that are working on the subtypes that are in the US, but we lack that in Nigeria. And I like to do that also in Nigeria because there are lots of people who have the capability. We've got lots of patients, we've got the samples there, but we don't have the infrastructure. And that's the reason why I left the country. So if you can come in that kind of partnership with me, it's going to make a difference. And his first response was really very strange, like looking at me like, what on earth is she talking about? This is a research institution. You come to gain knowledge. It's not charity. That's what he told me. And I said, well, US doesn't live in a vacuum. It requires the whole of the global world to work towards a problem. We're seeing it with Corona now. So your investment is going to be useful for your nation as well. And eventually, I mean, I didn't get a straight pass. I went in and I was focusing on whatever we were looking at that time. But at the back of his mind, that conversation stayed. And 2 years later, when a global organization said, you know what, this thing is devastating Africa. We need African scientists to begin to work with the kind of subtypes that are in Africa. Well, guess what? You remember the conversation I had with him 2 years ago. And now I have all of a number of my faculty that are here. We started with maybe a research study that was just a couple of very enthusiastic scientists like myself, 2 or 3, that still believed in Nigeria. And now we have a staff of about 500. We've got my faculty, my division, when I started, I was the only Black there. Right now, the division has 40% that are not only Black, but they're Nigerians. And they're doing extremely well. And just to your point, Pastor Esther, our colleagues, my colleagues in the US, now come here. So there is actually a brain gain. So I think though we have all of these challenges to deal with, there are some models there that have actually worked. And I totally believe in my very heart that once you have the passion, when you see that opportunity, you grab it. And it's for all of us to do the little that we can do. And I'm sorry I got off, but the conversation has been just amazing. And I always want to give an example of the Chinese, right? The Chinese go out there, they don't know a single English, but one thing they know for sure is Chinese. So I say, oh, well, they've grown up, talking in Mandarin and all of that. So what about the second generation? What about the Chinese that were born in the US and growing up? Well, they speak just as much Chinese. They're exposed to everything my sisters and brothers have been talking about in terms of TV, in terms of media, in terms of but they chose to protect that culture. We've got to change the narrative and
make
put the
that
effort.
choice as well. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Mrs. Gui said, why are our children not taking time to educate their friends out there on our morals, values, and the like? Is it our fault or is it our children? Manny, that comes to you. Why are you guys not educating the others
I,
about our morals?
oh man. I I I,
Your parents are speaking.
that question is I mean, I think my circle and my group of friends, we always educate our friends, Africans and
Yeah.
non-Africans. I think 98% of my friends and the people that I know, especially now with media and people seeing the richness of the culture, I think people are even more proud to be Black, and now not just Black, even African. So, but I don't know. I think also my generation, we also need to dig deeper into our cultures because maybe the impact isn't evident enough yet as to where, like, you know, people that aren't African or African here fully know the culture. So maybe it's the thing that I think it's happening, but it might not be on a grand level where it's like everyone is fully aware of, you know, their Africanness or their Blackness and things like that. So I don't know. I think it's happening. I don't, you know, because it's happening in my circle. So.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'm gonna take one more. Ngozi Okonta said, "Thank you, Manuel. Keep your children grounded when you do have them, I guess. I hope you will come back to Nigeria and pick a wife. Eh?
Oh man!
But if you don't, no problem. We will receive her. We will receive her here, and you know, we'll be very, very happy to have an American wife here. All right. Then, Pastor, I'm going to come back to you. We're about rounding up.
Okay.
And this other person said that actually that is not African brain drain that's been happening. He said it's the other way around. And he said right from the days of Jesus Christ, well, how did he put it? He said, how did he put it? He said that Jesus had to leave where he was and come to Africa. So he is saying that there are more people from the West coming to Africa now than what we think. You know, the Chinese are coming, the Europeans came, the Americans are also coming in one way or the other. So he thinks that we have a perspective that's not necessarily correct. When you talk about brain drain, you always think it's Africans going to the West. But there are many from the West that have come to Africa. And he gave the example of Jesus Christ coming to Egypt at one time. So, Pastor Sam, this one is on your table.
Well, thank you very much. Well, I think the reason why those various nations or nationals of those nations are coming is purely for economic reasons. Sylvia mentioned it in her submission. Africa is so rich in natural resources, and unfortunately, we can't even see it. We can't see that ourselves. You know, so but these folks, I have a number of business friends who are Lebanese, British, some who have been here for 30 years, some second generation. It's because of the business climate. It favors them. When they come in here, they are treated as first class, despite the fact if I go somewhere to bid with a British man or a German, Nigerians are more likely to give him presence, audience, than me, Nigerian black man. So that inferiority complex is something that they have chosen to exploit. And that is part of the narrative that we must change. You know, it's part of the narrative that we must change. We must value our own. We must value ourselves. And again, I can't run away from the fact that we need to start from our language. You asked Manny a question why they are not propagating those values. Thank God for what Manny and his group are doing. But do you know that in schools in Nigeria, parents put their children in schools where they try to speak phonetics? Those children have never, some of those children have never been to the airport, but they are speaking American. You know, so I'm trying to address what is first and foremost. Everybody wants to speak American. You know, so even our children here in Nigeria, they are being trained by their parents, put them in schools where they speak phonetics. They learn phonetics. They don't learn Yoruba, they don't learn Hausa, but they learn phonetics. So they begin to speak like American. So invariably, they are saying, you know what? Your language is inferior, your culture is inferior, is the American that is the real thing. So for me, I think that is one way that we need to start to begin to change the narrative. Let's be intentional. Let's start with language. Language is the vehicle for transmission of culture. Let's start with that. And not just that. Somebody also mentioned the issue of folklore. Nkechi mentioned that. Stories. They need to be conveyed in our language. History is being blotted out of the curriculum in Nigeria. If we don't know our past, if we don't know our rich heritage, what are we going to transmit? You know, so those are issues that I believe we need to address. Thank you, Pastor Esther. A beautiful conversation, but not enough time.
I wish we could for the
Can I get a second?
1 hour.
Can I get a quick
Unfortunately, we can't. Yes, Sylvia, you want to say something?
No, I just wanted to say really quick.
For your closing remark anyway. Go ahead.
Let's not forget that we're talking about Africa and then we're talking about Nigeria, but let's not forget also the Blacks in America that are from the islands, that a lot of people are looking forward to coming back to Africa. I went to Ethiopia, and there's Shashamani, where there's a lot of the sport of the Blacks coming back home, but they don't have a lot to come back home to as well. So let's keep that in mind, that a lot of Blacks, even in Ghana, a lot of Americans are moving to Africa as well. So there's still that responsibility of the country as well. And in Jamaica, we are taught of African history, not American history. So we have that bond and that tie. So let's keep that in mind.
Thank you, Sylvia, for bringing that perspective. And that also means the onus is on us, you know, as Africans, to begin to demand and to have good governance. We have a right to have good governance. We have a right to have people that will build the nation and the people, so that our people can come back, not just our people, but other nations of the earth can come to Africa and partake of its richness and its culture and enjoy it. Just as we have benefited from the West, we believe they also have a lot to benefit from us. And one of the things we need to do is to have good governance, have systems and structures in place that work and make the atmosphere conducive for our people to come back home. I just want to end by chipping in something before I ask you for your closing remarks, that it's not all bad news. You know, it is said that, well, one of the contributors to the largest contribution to our GDPs is the remittance of Nigerians back home. You know, how much money they send back home, and including other countries as well. For example, in 2018, Nigeria received almost $22 billion, which represented 5.84% of our GDP from Nigerians living abroad. So that's why I say, is it really brain drain or brain gain? And like one of our contributors said, it's not either one or the other. We stand to benefit from both sides of the coin. Let's just choose the good, the best, and what will build us up and what will add value to our lives, and not the negatives. That there are negatives in every culture, including African culture. It was Mary Celeste, the white lady that came to Nigeria and stopped the killing of twins. So it's not always bad, you know, but we need to learn how to select the good. Okay, Flora said, Debbie said, awesome discussion. Anne said, rich discussion. All contributors gave great perspectives. We must be intentional. Ediba said, I'm really enjoying this conversation. Our language is very important. Um, Del Africa said, has Africa now sacrificed our own culture on the altar of expediency? Somebody said, oh, I came late, so sorry, I can't help you with that. And Del said, Africa is largely influenced by foreign culture. And okay, last of all, Leke said, but to be honest, this is a pressing issue for all cultures. America can be metaphorically described as a black hole of culture, where different cultural identities are blended to form the American pop culture. Well, thank you, Leke, for your contribution. And Ingene said, is Africa, that if Africa is losing its children to the West, then our parents are the first to blame for it. I guess she's not very sympathetic. She's really hitting it. She must be a young person. She's blaming the old generation. We have taken responsibility. We're not running from it. And then finally, Anne Essan said, I don't think the language has to do with our kids moving to the West. Even back at home, we don't speak our language with our kids anymore. Initially, our parents make a deliberate act of teaching us our language and insist we speak it. So these are the general views and opinions that have come in. Thank you so much, everyone, for your contributions. Before we close, I'm going to have to give each of you one final word from each of you. I'll start from Nkechi and then go around that way. And we have a treat. We have two fantastic singers as our contributors, and I'm not going to let them go until they sing one line of their song for us today. Well, okay, our passing shots, Nkechi.
Okay. I would say that a lot has been said about culture and inculcating our culture, transmitting our heritage from generations to generation. But we have to be practical, and we have to maybe our stories. In those days, we go to Tales by Moonlight. We listen on NTA Tales by Moonlight to 5:30 to listen to our stories of Africa. So let us maybe our school curriculums to be changed to adapt this and tell our stories in our subject, or maybe the government will look into it and say, okay, in primary schools, languages, subjects should be taught in our native language. And maybe in secondary school we can now change that and start speaking English. Maybe that would work. But in all, Africa is a rich country, I must say. You must know the richest man that ever lived is an African, if you research that. So Africa is a rich country. Let us embrace what we have. Let us build ourselves. Talking about what to come back to. The World Health Organization said it is one doctor.
So much,
one doctor.
Sorry, it has to be 1 minute. 1 minute. I know you have a lot to say. We'll probably have another panel discussion. Thank you, Nkechi. 1 minute, please. Okay. Professor Ashley.
Thank you, Pastor Esther. This has been very enriching despite my internet challenges. So my comments on this issue is really looking. I feel very optimistic about the whole thing, and I see the fact that we're even discussing it today shows that we want to do something about it. But I must look to young ones like Mani on the call and really depend on you. There are ways. There's a reason why parents take care of kids, and after a while, kids take care of parents. You have to demand. We make mistakes. Come to us and say, you know what? This thing is really very precious. You guys have to begin to teach us this. And it's amazing how many parents actually change their thought process because their kids come back and say, we want to do things differently. So I'm looking to you, Mani, and the rest of the youth to change this around with our support.
Thank you so much, Professor Abiniku. Mani, it's your turn. You are taking the challenge.
I accept the challenge. I accept the challenge, and I know that with the more intentional we are, the more I think that we'll see a change happen in Africa, and with Africans here as well. I just want to encourage everyone that all hope isn't lost. That I don't think we will lose our culture to the Western world. I think there's still hope, and I think that people like myself and my group of friends and people that are connected to us are looking to bring great things back to Africa. And also, this is so random, but something that came to my mind was Africa starting to value women more. I think that's very important. I think women are amazing, and women have a different perspective and just the way that God created women. So I think that with Africa valuing women a little bit more, I think we'll also see some change and good things happen. More good things happen, and that's it for me.
Amen. Thank you so much, Manny. I think we're going to give you a medal tonight. Pastor Sam. Pastor
Wow.
Sam.
Thank you so much, Pastor Esther, for this beautiful conversation. It's been wonderful. I've really enjoyed myself. I will want to just say that our government should wake up from their slumber. We need to make the environment conducive enough. If there is electricity, Nigerians are one of the, or Africans generally, we are some of the most enterprising people in the world. And we are not asking for too much. We are very, very enterprising. So if the government can make the environment conducive and make all the infrastructure available, I'm sure that our young ones, even when they go abroad, they will come back with all the ideas and all the innovations and creativity and the things they have seen. They would like to replicate them in our country, in our continent. So I'm making a call to the government to please rise, make the infrastructure available. We have the resources. Let's apply them rightly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. God bless you. Sylvia.
All right. I think that we should seriously take a look at our selfishness within ourselves. And it seems like a lot of people are going out to grab the American dream, to have more materialistic things while our neighbors are suffering. And then there's not much, there's too much selfishness, community-wise, country-wise. And we need to really focus as well on the world, the suffering, and our neighbors, and not just try to grab enough cars and enough houses and enough this and accolades, but really consider our neighbors and have a Christ-like spirit.
Thank you, Sylvia. Awesome. In my conclusion, I would like to just quote what Flora is saying. She said, it takes one person to bring the change. God only needs one person to say, yes, Lord, I will make Nigeria great again, the giant of Africa, but for the kingdom of God. It is well. We are fighting on the home front and the abroad front.
Amen. Amen.
With that, we come to the end of this wonderful time. I am so thankful to all of you for your just awesome contribution. I have been blessed, really listening to the different perspectives and your experiences and all you have to share. Thank you. But before we say goodbye, Sylvia, your song, and Manny, yours too. We're listening right now and we're ready to clap. One line, let's go.
He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands.
Thank you. Awesome. Manny, it's your turn.
Okay. We just want to be free. Yeah, oh, yeah. We just want to live life. Yeah, oh, yeah.
Whoa. Fantastic. Nkechi, thank you for being here. Professor Abimiko, Thank you for holding out in spite of the internet challenges. Manny, you've made my day. Pastor Sam, what can I say? You are my brother. Thank you so much. I love you all. Sylvia, thank you. It was just wonderful, wonderful discussion. And we look forward to doing this again. And finally, this just came in that you should all say goodbye in your dialect. It's a demand. Starting with you, Ngozi, goodbye in your dialect. Okay.
Kachifo.
Seki.
Odabo.
Okay.
Odabo.
Walker.
Okay.
See you later.
So about me. Goodbye, all. God bless
That was
you.
his song. Pastor Esther, that was his song.
Thank you, Pastor
Thank
Esther.
you so much.
Thank you so
Goodbye.
much. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.